Hi, this is an interview with Lawrence McManus. David Reddy. This is part of our oral histories for FABA that I'm conducting here in Ocala at the annual meeting on October 4th, 2014. Introduce yourself, Lawrence, and tell us how old you are.
Well, Lawrence just turned Lawrence McManus. I grew up in a boys' school in Boston, Mass. I was born in Waltham, Mass. When I was 11 years old, I went to a boys' school in Boston that was sponsored by the Rotary Club. And it was an island that was all boys. And we worked half a day and we went to school half a day. So we learned all different trades. They didn't have a blacksmithing school there. They did have machinists and printing and all the other things. We had a full farm there. We raised all our own vegetables. We did pretty much everything. Played in the band. And so I stayed there until I was 15. Moved to Miami. Went to Coral Gables High School. And then in 1953 I went into the service during the Korean War. And went to school at Keesler Air Force Base to become a radar operator. And from there we went to Japan and then was offered a job either in Japan or off the coast of Japan, which I had no idea where that was or what it was entailed or continue on to Korea. So I chose to take the longer period of time and went on an island off the coast of Korea, and we ran interceptions. We were an intercept organization, and we monitored the aircraft flying anywhere near Japan or coming off the coast anywhere in Korea and off along the Kuriles.
High tech then.
Yeah, it was actually not really high tech. The radar system I worked on was a similar system to what they used in Hawaii when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. It's called an SCR-270. There won't be very many people know about it. Mm-hmm. It was a square antenna. It was driven by a chain. And in the wintertime up on the mountain, we were on the top of a mountain, on the wintertime, the chain would freeze up when you'd stop the antenna to get the azimuth and the ranging of the aircraft. You had two scopes, and you'd get the azimuth and the ranging. And we have to stop the antenna to get that, and the antenna would freeze up, the chain would freeze up, and we'd have to go outside and push it by hand to get it going again. So pretty much was able to learn a lot of things like that and be able to go on my own. When I got out of the service, I had no idea what I was going to do. Who wanted a radar operator? Well, at that time, in 1956, they had a collision of two aircraft over Colorado. Two L-1049s, that's the triple-tailed aircraft, had collided, and the CAA at that time wanted to beef up the air traffic control system. There were not very many controllers at each area, just the view in the towers, and then enough to maintain man 24 hours, and then the air traffic centers. And I went into I got a job in an air traffic center, where it's good. And the reason I tell you about this is because I'm going to be going from the fastest transportation to the slowest transportation. And that came about in 1963. My wife and I, no children at the time, moved to New Hampshire and ended up just outside of Manchester in a little town called Ware, New Hampshire. And for some reason or other, I got the idea that I could make some money on the side with a riding academy. So I bought some horses to teach riding, and also I had a background with the horses from the island. And I bought some big horses as well, some big draft horses. Well, the problem that I didn't realize and wasn't thinking about when I did all of this was these animals like something on their feet, so they don't wear their hooves out. And I couldn't find a blacksmith that would come out to our area. Most of the blacksmiths were working right in around Manchester, and there wasn't anybody that was traveling that much at the time. So I decided that I probably had to do something because my big horses, their feet began getting ragged and everything. So I said, well, I've got to learn to do something with them. So I went into Manchester and I found an old blacksmith there that had shod the hood horses when they were delivering milk with the horses. And he offered to teach me how to shoe so that I could get these shoes on these horses. So he came out and helped me, he helped me learn how to shoe the horse. And I picked up a lot from him and then from other people. That was Tony Dakota. And Tony at the time wasn't doing that much shoeing. What he was doing was making railings and doing blacksmithing. So I got an interest in the blacksmith shop there. And that's how I really got into blacksmithing, because he told me that he would love to teach me if I wanted to come over and learn. He had a 50-pound power hammer there in a coal forge. So
this is in the mid-60s?
This is in the mid-60s, yeah, right around 1964. In 65, I think I was with Tony then. And then he began showing me how to make scrolls and things like that. So that's basically where I started. I started in making scrolls. He had the scroll benders and all of that business there. And I'd heat them up and pound them out and make the different types of ends that he wanted, and then bend the scrolls for what he wanted, throw them in a big pile. And he had a specialty welder there that was really good at welding, big table, and they'd weld up the gates and the iron railings.
Was there a lot of business?
There was a lot of business, yeah. He was one of only 3 blacksmiths in the town. Two of the others were doing horseshoeing at that time, and they weren't doing the iron gates and things. So Tony was basically had the business pretty much to himself for gates and railings and such as that. So I picked up a lot from Tony. And then in 1968 I became more interested with the horses and stuff like that, and I became president of the New England Farriers Association. And we were representing not only the shoers that were out shoeing locally, we were representing the trotting horse group that was down at Rockingham Racetrack. And we represented them, and the reason that they came with us mostly was that a lot of people at that time a lot of the horsemen would build up bills and not pay them. They'd move to another track, and these horseshoers weren't getting paid. So
the sulky racers.
Sulky racers, right? And so we got together, and I went down and met with the management at the racetrack and everything, and we set up a program where the horseshoers would have the drivers would have to come in, and the owners would have to come in and show that they had paid their stable bills for the horseshoers.
Was this an important source of income for you at that time?
It wasn't any income coming out of it, because other than the riding stable. Riding stable didn't work out too good. I got sued a couple of times, and we did very well with the wagons. You know, my dad lived with us at the time, and he would take people out on like Halloween coming up, and we'd be busy doing that, and then hay rides and stuff like that. We did a lot of that. But in the saddle business, people wouldn't pay attention to what you were doing, and we'd tell them that they couldn't run the horses in certain areas, you know, and they had to be more careful. And every once in a while, some of them would take off, and they'd get hurt, you know. And it was always somebody falling off of a horse. And we had one girl she fell off. She was injured the worst probably, and the people behind her, the girls behind her, ran over her. So she was in a coma for about 3 weeks, and then she came out of that, and she said, "No, you're not going to cause any trouble for Mr. McManus." She refused to have any problem there. But a couple of others I settled with for small amounts of money. Finally decided to get out of the. So then I, during that period of time when I still had the stable, I was buying horses down at Hampstead, down at the auctions, and I met a lady down there, and she was telling me how her husband was a horseshoer. He was shoeing the flats, and at Rockingham. So I told her what I was doing.
Shoeing flats.
Yeah, that's the race horses like you see at the Kentucky Derby And the others, of course, are the trotters with the sulky horses.
Okay, flats. I never heard of flats.
Yeah, the flats, basically, they had their own journeyman's union, and none of them came into our union, but we had a number of our guys that were in our union went over and joined. I was able, as president, to get them an opportunity to take the test, because that was a very tight union, the journeyman's union for the racehorses. And I was able to get them so they could take the test. At any rate, I met a fellow named Jim Eagleson, and Jim had been shoeing horses most of his life. I think in 1947 he went to work for a guy named McCarthy up in Braintree, Massachusetts. And he shot horses once he got out of the service. He needed a job, and his dad said, well, I can get you a job with McCarthy over there shoeing horses. So he'd learned how to shoe at that time, and he worked in the shop too, the blacksmith shop. And Jim was very talented. He was a machinist too. So they came up to the farm, and they used to spend a lot of time up there with us. And Jim and I did a lot of blacksmithing together. Later years we made rounding hammers and all kinds of tools. We made all the tools to make the different things, you know. And he used to come down here. In fact, he was part of our association at one time. He was part of the FABA group. He doesn't come down anymore. He's going to be 90 in March. And by the way, I don't know whether I said or not, I'll be 80. I was 80 in September.
Oh wow! You don't look it.
So I've crossed into the golden age, I guess you'd call it that. And,
so, as the revival came along and they started, like Abana started.
right.
Where did you get involved in those organizations?
I didn't get involved in a banner. I got involved in the FABA back in the 80s. And I was friends of J.C. Hawkins and Hasselback. You know, Les.
Hollenbach,
yeah. And
Lester.
both of Lester and J.C. both were up in Chicago. They were shoers up there, and Lester, of course, had his shoeing school up there and blacksmithing school. And both of these guys are very talented. So, you know, at that time, FABA had more of a, we used to go to each guy's farm. We used to go from one to the other. And Jim and I, typically when we would go and learn how to do something, and that's how we got to making the rounding hammers. We went to J.C. Hawkins one time, and he made rounding hammers. So we went home, and the next day we started making the tools, and we started making rounding hammers. And I think Jim probably sold 50 to 100 hammers.
When did you move to Florida?
We came to Florida, and I came as a boy in 1950, and from the school, from the island. And then when I got married in '61, by 1963, I could buy a farm in New Hampshire for about $17,000, and I bought a 270-acre farm for $17,000, and it had 17-room home, 3 barns, a carriage shed, and a garage which I turned into my blacksmith shop. So, and a lot of land to take care of. And that's why we had the riding stable there. We had plenty of room for the horses and the barns and everything. So, and we enjoyed it while we did it. It was just not a money maker. It was not something you could make money with. It was a money pit.
And then you moved to Florida from there, or?
No, we stayed in New Hampshire for 22 years. We raised twin girls and 2 boys. And after I retired in 1981 as an air traffic controller, I headed south to Florida again. We came back in '84 and we've been here ever since. Because as soon as I heard about the FABA group, we joined up with them and traveled around, and we pick up a lot of stuff. I pick up stuff every time I go. I figure that I can never learn less.
There you go.
I can always learn something from these people, and I always do. I mean, these conferences, and we go to different places. I can remember when Holbrook came into the organization and had no training at all, and he was interested, one. He wanted to learn blacksmithing, and it wasn't very long before. I mean, he was turning out some pretty decent stuff. I mean, really nice stuff.
He'd taken some blacksmith training in technical school as a child, though.
We had, okay.
And it just was something that he took the classes like everybody made you take it.
Right.
And then he didn't do anything for 20, 30 years.
Right.
But when he came back, it was like, I know how to do this.
Yeah, and he does.
Mm.
And then we've had a couple of doctors that have come into the organization. One fellow was from Jacksonville. Can't think of his name right now, but and he was just picking it up, and boy, he was really good. And then Carl, he was because he's gone. And
Carl Van Arnhem.
Carl Van Arnhem. We used to go to his place. Every year we had a tour at his place up in Gainesville, and that was great training up there. I mean, typically they got blacksmiths and people that had been blacksmithing for years. And then several years ago, I think they brought in this fellow from England. He lived in Washington or Virginia. I don't know whether you remember him or not.
Phil Heath?
Yeah. He was unbelievable.
He was amazing.
Couldn't believe what he did. I mean, he would. And he'd been a blacksmith in England, and his grandmother promised that he'd get that blacksmith shop, and for some reason or other, they sold the blacksmith shop out from under him, and he decided to come to the United States. But he was fantastic. I mean, he was just so fast. But these guys are all fast. Jeff Moore, you watch Jeff do it. I mean, he can talk. He can talk and do do 2 or 3 things at the same time. I mean, we've just had some fantastic demonstrators through the years. Clyde Payton, he's had people up there at his place. Skeeter, and all these guys that have just got a wealth of knowledge, have been willing to pass this on to the young people. I see guys like Jordan Thomas out here that we've got, and all these young people that are really doing wonderful. I mean, they're doing some great work, and it's great that years ago, like when I started, blacksmith didn't teach you much. You learned yourself, by watching. I mean, they did most of the work on a fire and stuff like that, unless it was just monotonous work. Then they let you do it.
Yeah.
And of course, I was a striker for a number of years. I did the striking, and I was strong. And when Jim and I worked, Jim, 10 years older than me, Jim Eagleson, and I'd be the striker, and he.
Where was that?
Right down here in Florida. He came down here. He lives up in Massachusetts. He lives in Taunton, Mass.
But where in Florida?
Right in Ocala.
You live in Ocala?
Yeah, I live right here in Ocala.
Ah, okay. So when you moved to Florida,
I came back here because Miami and Coral Gables had gotten so many people that it was
so expensive.
It was expensive down there. And now it's even terrible now. But the people that are down there are moving up this way now to get away from the traffic and the hubbub. But the blacksmithing has really grown. I mean, with all the different guilds, we got the different groups that we've got in the Northeast and Southwest, and talented people everywhere. No matter where we go, you're going to see some talent that's just amazing.
Do you work with farriers anymore, or?
I don't do any shoeing. I like to make tools right now. I make a lot of the antique type lighting. I like to do that. I like to do a lot of the
electric or
no, the old candle type.
Ah, okay.
Lighting, colonial lighting.
Yeah.
No electric. And then Jim and I used to make our own tongs, and like I said, we made our own hammers.
Yeah.
I didn't. Jim started to make the shoeing hammers too for the guys, but we had trouble getting the ears on the shoeing hammers to where they wouldn't wear out on us and break. So we haven't made very many more shoeing hammers. But Lester Hollenbach was an expert at that. I mean, he can show you how to make a shoeing hammer and make it stay so it'll last.
And this is the domed on one side, flat on the other, with the little
the
round
two ears
yeah.
that's shaped backwards. and you hammer your nail in. The most was wringing nails off. You know, I didn't get them cut off fast. The horse would jerk and he'd get you in the hand. And once you got a shoe half on, you got to finish the shoe.
Yeah.
And especially the big horses, they would when they want their foot, you have to give it to them.
Yeah.
Like this big horse out in the back here, you know, you got a lot of weight there, and some of them will lay on you. You know, the tall guys, they really get it. The guy short like me, I'm closer to the ground. They don't have far to toss me.
So the guy in New Hampshire was
Jim
your
Eagleson,
big
yeah.
trainer. Eagleton was
Well, the biggest trainer was Tony Dakota.
okay.
Yeah,
He was in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was in basic work. You know, welding, forge welding, and all of that.
But you seem to travel and learn in a lot of places.
Yeah, I did. I went to Doug Butler was a farrier and teaches at Cornell. He's a professor there at Cornell. I don't know if Doug's still alive, but Doug had there was a conference going on, and Doug was the main teacher, main demonstrator in Detroit, and we went there I spent 3 days there with that program. And Doug was just fantastic. He wore a hat. He came in to demonstrate, and he had a shirt and a tie on, believe it or not, and a hat, a regular bowler hat that he wore. And I don't know if he's still around or not, but you know, you learn stuff from guys from all over, you know. And then I think they still have it. They were in Ocala having the horseshoeing competition. And they would go out at the Arabian Center and set up, and they had all kinds of, you know, they'd have all kinds of competitions going on. There'd be 40 or 50 of these guys in there, turning the shoes and putting them on, and, you know, they had speed trials and all kinds of things. It was unbelievable to see some of the equipment these fellas had. They were coming down and doing that.
That'd be really interesting.
It was great, but then they moved it to the fairgrounds down in Tampa. And to me, we went down a couple of times. Unfortunately, it was raining both times we went each year. And I think they still have it down there, but it's just not the same as it was.
What would they call it? I mean, is it a farrier meeting or?
Yeah, it was a farrier. It was a farrier competition.
I'll have to watch for that.
Yeah, American farriers, and it's down. You're down in Tampa. Yeah. It's over at the fairgrounds when they have the. It's not. I don't think it's during. It may be during the fair that they do it. I don't know. It's. I've forgotten now exactly when they have it. I know it's in the wintertime because Jim was here then, and both of us used to go. Jim Eagleson and myself.
So you've made a lot of tools. Is there any other area that you specialized in blacksmithing, like for the public, or?
I did a number of different projects that I tried to do, and like Gordon was saying out here, I'll make it once, but if it don't sell, I won't make it again. But I used to make pritchels, and one of the things I did when I was with the farriers group, when I was president of the farriers, I used to get a lot of the tools and sell them to the farriers. I'd buy them wholesale, and large amounts of Nicholson files and hoof knives and all kinds of equipment, nippers, and cut-offs, and that was productive for me, probably more so than a lot of the other work is. I do like to make birds and things like that, and that's why I'm enjoying Gordon out here, because he's pretty crafty at what he's doing. You just keep picking up stuff from these guys. It's just unbelievable. At one time, we used to be able to, back in the 70s, the rural industries from England, you could get the plans for almost anything that was made in the 1800s, the 1700s, and I've got full-scale plans for all kinds of things, that the hinges and things like that. They're full-size, scale-size plans, and you could buy them from England. And I ordered them, and I'd buy them, and I've still got them. I've got my job. Some of them I haven't tried to build. I've seen some things at Madison a year ago, I believe. not last year. Yeah, last year I believe we were in Madison. Not this year, but next
Right,
year we'll
right.
go.
Every other.
There was a fella that had made a lantern, and I've got the plans for that lantern. And he had made
I
the
saw
thing.
that.
It was an amazing
Yes.
piece of blacksmithing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he told me at the time how long it took to make that, but it was beautiful work. But like he said, you can do anything you want as long as you're willing to take the time and figure out how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, there's another blacksmith that does, and they'll help you, typically. And that's the key thing, is to be willing to go out and say, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you give me a hand with it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll do that today, you'll do well with it. I did. One interesting note was that there was another blacksmith that was in Milford, New Hampshire, a guy named Hunter, and he had been working at the. They used to make the colonial hinges in Milford, New Hampshire. You might still see that. I don't know that they still do it, but he ran a nibbler machine. They nibble them out, and then they'd clean them up afterwards.
Mm.
And he ran a nibbler to make these colonial hinges. And he finally opened up his own blacksmith shop there. And in the early 60s, I think 64, 65, I went down to his shop and I wanted to learn something. Well, a lot of the old blacksmiths at that time wouldn't teach you too much. And he was making the kind of things that I liked, you know, the hinges and the tools and all of that.
Competition, you were.
And he figured competition. Now, the guy did help me. I asked him one time, I said, I need a good anvil. I've got a 250-pound anvil that's really too heavy for me to move. And it's a great big heavy thing. And I got that from Tony Dakota in Manchester. And Hunter turned around and he said, well, I says, I got a brand new hay button. Would you be willing to give me $50 for it? I said, yeah, I'll pay you $50 for it. I bought that anvil brand new. It still looks new. You know, I've kept it good. And he sold me that brand new anvil. It was 125 pounds.
Perfect.
It was just right. I can pick it up still today. I'm not being 80 years old. It's a little harder for me to pick it up, but I can still pick it up and move it. But I try not to move it too much anymore.
Mine's 140 pounds, and
Yeah.
I can pick it up,
Yeah.
and I can turn with it.
Yeah.
And I can put it back, but I can't put it down on the ground, or
You couldn't get it up.
and I can't pick it up from the ground.
No, it's really hard to. Yeah. No, I'm generally picking it up off of something. Although I did take it off the floor of my shop and bring it out and put it on the stump that I've got my anvil on it. Right now I'm using mostly gas to forge with, but I had to do some work on a firebox and I just never got it done right. Fireboxes, the cast iron, really hard to work on, and to weld them up, you've got to heat the whole casting. It's got to be red hot. Now you got to be able to get up near it to weld on it, and I didn't get the job done as good as I wanted to, so I never got the coal forge back together again. But I need to put that back together again because I've got a barrel full of coal.
Yeah.
That was a funny thing. I went down to Braintree years ago, and I had two big 55-gallon drums, and I'm going to fill them up with coal. So I got them on my pickup truck, and I get down there, and they fill these drums up with coal. I get home, I can't move them. I cannot move these drums. I said, how the heck am I going to get this coal off of this truck? So I got some help, and we wrenched them around and finally got them over near the edge of the thing, and we just got them and spun them off and let them go. And that's how I got the coal off of that truck. Needless to say, when I went down to get coal from then on, and you could buy coal at that time, I think it was $80 a ton.
Wow.
For forge coal. I had to go to Braintree, Mass to get it out of New Hampshire, but it was worth doing. So from then on, when I take the pickup down there, I just have them put it in the bed of the truck, and I'd shovel it off afterwards.
Why not?
Yeah.
You save all that part about knocking.
Oh yeah, you can't move it. I got a barrel full now, and you can't move that.
So what's your latest project? What are you doing now?
I've been making those little rush lamps. Have you seen the little rush lamp that's a three-legged rush lamp? and it's got a little twist in the upright, and then it's got like
like a hinge that.
yeah, it's a hinge.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay, maybe I can get you to send me a picture.
it's like a tongs. It's like a tong together, and it holds the rush.
Oh, yes, I've seen it.
And then it bends up, and then I bent around. Now I just bought a colonial book down here at the bookstore down here that they've got at the hotel. I just picked up one down there, and the reason I bought it, I think I paid $55 for it, but it was produced by a club that was and it's called the Rush Lamp Group. Rush Lamp Club. Well, you know, there's not going to be very many of those books out there. And I asked her, I said, where did you get this book? And she says, I bought it from a blacksmith's collection of books, and it was the only one that she's ever seen down there, the Blue Moon Press. She said she'd never seen one before.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and buy it, because, you know, I searched the internet to see if it was available out there. I couldn't find it. So I knew that it's a rare book.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Rush lamps, they call it a lamp, but a lot of those Rush things look like to me that they only hold the rush. That they light that little piece of rush, and put some wax on it or something, and it stays burning for a while, and then they can go around and light the different lamps and things like that with it. And they keep it in that tong that's holding it. So that's my latest project. And actually I'm in a wood turners club too. And my latest projects is turning pins. Have you seen the wooden pins? All kinds of wooden pins. I was going to pick them up today. I had the engraver engraving them. I made pins for my sons, and they're for Christmas. So I got them done, and I took them over and got them engraved. Now they're ready, and I meant to pick them up so that
like a bowling pin, or
no, it's a pen for writing.
oh,
writing.
pen.
Yeah.
Sorry, southern person. I hear pin. Oh, that's a pen.
Yeah. No, it's they're pens, and these guys wanted to. They do a lot of bowl turning, and I told them that I made a lot of my own tools, and they said, well, maybe you could help us make some different tools. So I helped them make what they call a snake, which is a three-piece tool, and we put a carbide cutter on the end of it, and it mounts on the lathe, and they can actually go right in. They can have a hole this big and a bowl this big, and go inside and clean that bowl out with these tools that I've made for them.
Oh, isn't that nice?
And it was just by offsetting and bending back in again, and then I put a flat on it so that they could drill a hole and tap it, and then put that carbide cutter on there, and they work beautifully, you know.
One of those, how the heck did you do this thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I helped them make that, and in fact, I've got to make another one right now for one of the fellas. And it works good for turning, especially with that carbide cutter, and it is solid. You know, I make it out of 1-inch steel.
Oh yeah.
So these pieces, there's like an 8-inch and a 6-inch and another 8-inch piece. So it's really rugged material, and it's on a swivel, and all the pieces swivel back and forth so that you can really get that arm in there.
In there, and
Right.
Gouge it out.
Right.
You think that early life experience of farming, the dairy farm, that I hear so many people say they were associated with a farm, they did this at a farm or that, and it just seems like people who farm think that they can do anything.
That could be the case. I was introduced to the big horses there because we used them we had chickens. We raised chickens there, about 500 chickens for eggs and meat. And when we would clean out the chicken houses, we used beach sand. And apparently that was really good for the chickens and made real strong shells. We used the beach sand that had a lot of shells and stuff in it, you know, oyster shells and clam shells. And we would go down on the beach and get that with the tip cut and the horse, because you couldn't drive anything down on the beach. It's soft, but we could pull a tip cut down there, and we bring that back and then put it into the chicken houses. I really hated cleaning those chicken houses afterwards.
I bet.
Yeah, and that had to be done every year. you know. I don't think people realize the amount of work involved with chickens. Those chickens, we used to have to blood test those chickens, and we tested every single chicken. We drew blood on every single chicken. I don't know, people probably don't even realize that you've got, I don't know that they do that still today, but I know that we did. It was, but we had the big horses, we had the big barns, and we had cattle, cows for milking. That was one of the projects that I did. We had flower gardens, so we learned all of that. I learned the wood turning there also, and that's how I got involved with the wood turners. One of my projects down and display down there is a piece of driftwood that I've worked over, and then I have a cross in there, and then a rose that I made, and it's got the hummingbird in it.
Okay, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get some pictures to go with this interview, because I think that having somebody talking is very nice,
Right.
but a few pictures that dress it up, and
Yeah.
and maybe that's a good idea. Yeah. So what am I not asking you about?
I don't know. I've had a pretty interesting life with all that went on. When the girls were growing up, one of the good things about the horses that was good for the family was my twins, the twin girls, used to drive a pony cart all over town. Oh, and everybody knew those twins. They loved those twins.
Wow.
And they looked exactly alike. They were identical twins. They looked just exactly alike. And they'd travel around in that pony cart. And they'd see them girls coming, and that's all they talk about in the town. And they loved them. That was an interesting part. The boys weren't that much interested in the horses. They just never got involved in it. The girls were either riding them or driving them all the time. And like I said, we had the hay wagons, and we had sleighs too. I had a fella call me up from up on the lakes in New Hampshire. And he said, I understand you might be interested in some wagons. And I said, yeah, I would be. And I said, what kind of money are we talking? And he says, $350 for everything. I said, well, I don't know, you know. And at that time, I wasn't making that much money back in the 60s. And $300 is a lot of money, you know. And I said, well, I don't think I'll be interested in that. And he said, well, I've got a whole barn full of wagons and sleighs, and he says, I've got to get rid of them. I said, you got a whole barn full of them? I said, and you want $300 for all of them? Yes. I said, okay, well, I'll come up and take a look at them. I went up there, and you would not believe it. They had saved all of these sleighs from the hotels. They were 3-seated sleighs and 2-seated sleighs. There was a bird's eye maple wagon in there with the drivers that rode on the back, and the people sat in the, you know, like an English sleigh, not a sleigh, but an English wagon. And
so the driver sat up above.
Yeah, the driver sat up above in the back, and he ran the horses. It was an interesting thing. I sold it to a dentist from Ohio. Once he found out I had all these sleighs, he was interested in them, and he just made me offers I couldn't refuse.
I bet they'd be worth a fortune.
Oh, they'd be worth a fortune today.
God.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I kept them right up, but when I came to Florida, you know, what am I going to do with sleighs and wagons and everything? So I got a hold of the doctor in Ohio, and he came and he bought most of them. You know, he wanted that bird's eye maple wagon, and I mean, he wanted that right away.
Oh man!
But my wife had a tack shop, so she sold saddles and all kinds of tack, and she had antiques, and she did well with that. So we had a great life on the farm. You know, it was great for raising children, and the kids really, you know, today you can still see it in them. They're very Christian because the two boys went to Christian schools, so they're very thoughtful of other people, and they're really.
How are they with their hands?
I'm really proud of the boys, and the girls too. The boys are very good with their hands. Kevin is an instructor pilot out in Fort Rucker in Alabama at the military base there, the Army base.
Oh, the helicopters.
Yeah, he flies the Blackhawks.
Wow.
And Greg is a teacher.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
from what I understand it now, the high school students all have to take one virtual class.
Hmm.
So and he's busy. I mean, he's got a lot of students,
Very interesting.
and they're interested. But you'll be surprised who's interested in the blacksmithing. One of the twins, the girls.
Yeah.
She absolutely loves it. She'll get I'll send you a picture. If you give me your email, I'll send you a picture of some of the projects that I've made, the hammers and things,
Yeah.
and the rush lamps, and I'll send you a picture of Kelly with her apron on. She
Yeah.
absolutely loves blacksmithing. No matter,
Yeah.
I made her helped her make a cording candle.
Uh-huh.
She loved that, and I made her, and she just loves doing it. You know, she gets out there and.
That's great.
Yeah.
To pass that on and to have that to share with her.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they really enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kevin, as well as being full-time training instructor, he's got a recycling business, a full-size recycling business, something that I would never attempt to do. I mean, he's got just acres and acres of stuff now. He started out with the aluminum cans, and now he's gone
Oh, wow.
big time. I mean, he's got a big operation there. He's got thousands of dollars in recyclables.
Yes, no.
You know, so he's really done well with it. All of the kids did. We did lose one of our twin girls.
Yeah. That's too bad.
When she was 40, she had anaphylactic shock, and but she'd had a number of warnings. I always felt God gives you warnings, and she'd had a number of episodes, about 10 or 15 episodes before that. And she went to New Hampshire to see an allergist one time, and he said, I can tell you, he says, I know I can't cure you, but he says, I can tell you, you know what you're going to die of. And that's what she died of.
Mm.
So, that was tough.
I've got one daughter, so.
You know what it would be
Yeah.
if something
No, I
happened.
don't.
Yeah.
I don't wanna.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it was heartbreaking, but we had it for 40 years.
yeah.
And we had a lot of fun together.
Yeah.
And the other girl looks like her.
Yeah. Well, you got to be happy for what you got.
Yeah, God was good to us. Yeah, we've been very blessed. You know, we thank Him every day. And, you know, even my health today, so that I can do what I'm doing with the blacksmithing and the wood turning and all of the stuff that I do. I'm the president of the Coin Club in Ocala.
Coins too.
Yeah, coins, numismatic coins.
Yeah.
We hold a meeting the fourth Tuesday of every month, and the fifth Tuesday if there is one. And so I'm getting knowledgeable on a lot of stuff. For some reason or other, I want to go back into the past, I guess, you know, because I've got a lot of the old coins that come from the 1800s, a lot of 1800s. I don't have any 1700s, but a lot of 1800 coins, and a lot of it is really interesting. A lot of it's copper and stuff like that, but it's still valuable, you know, as it gets older, you know. A lot of the pennies, you know, you see pennies like this that they had. Yeah, it's really interesting to hold some of these coins that were minted back in the 1800s, you know, because now we're getting up. I think I've probably lived in the most unique age since the beginning of time almost, because look where we came from. I had a milkman that delivered milk with a horse and a buggy.
Yeah.
Horse and a wagon. I've got a cooler, refrigerator in my house. That's the old ice box. In fact, that's what they called it, was an ice box. And I have the sign that they used to turn.
Oh yeah,
Quarter
in the
piece,
window.
half a piece, whole piece of ice, and we loved to chase the Iceman down the street when he'd come.
Oh wow.
And he'd chip off that ice, you know, making whatever size you wanted, and the little chips there. We thought that was great. That was like ice cream to us. To get those chips of ice.
Yeah, you think about my grandfather drove a car before there were driver's licenses, and his grandfather made a plane before there were planes.
Yeah.
It didn't fly. He built it in the barn, couldn't get it out.
Yeah.
That was a technical problem. But
I've heard of boats like that.
yeah, right.
They build a boat in their cellar and they can't get it out.
But for him to go from that to the people flying to the moon and
Yeah, and that's where we've gone from. We've got people gone to the moon. Really didn't have much air transportation when I was born in 1934. Very little.
DC-3s,
My grandmother came from Ireland, and my great-grandpa, he came from Ireland, so I'm not far out of the old country. And I think they still do a lot of blacksmithing and stuff like that over there, ironwork in England and in Ireland and Scotland.
Yeah,
I think some of the guys have been over there and seen that. Jerry Wolf has been over in that area and seen a lot of that type of thing. I'm going to do it myself one day.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah, I'm planning on it. I'd like to see it. And as long as the Lord will let me, I'll keep hammering iron. Just being able to shape something like that and make things and make replicas of what there was. Like I said, I just seem to want to live in the old times.
Well,
especially in that. I did have another fellow up in New Hampshire that was very influential, and that was Henry Frederick. And what I found out about the blacksmith was that he not only did blacksmithing, if business got slow in the blacksmith shop, they learned how to do other things. And this guy was an expert at making these baskets. He made beautiful baskets out of beech and birch, and mostly beechwood. And this would have a wooden bottom, and then he would take the sides and then weave in these beech, and he would cut all this out on a saw. And at one time, the saws that he had and the ones that I worked on when I was at the Farm and Trade School were all run by belts and pulleys. You had one motor that ran everything, and it ran everything in the shop. You'd have them belts slapping and banging, and it ran the lathes and the drill press. Everything was run by that.
Osh would come in now and slap you around if you tried to run that.
Oh yeah, and the printing presses that we had, they could be dangerous. I set a lot of type, learned how to set type.
Wow.
We, like I said, we worked half a day and went to school half a day. So you'd either work in the morning or work in the afternoon, and you went to school the other part of the time. And that
you learned to be competent.
Yes. Yeah. In the summertime, we had a couple of weeks where we could go off the island, go home, and as long as you didn't get too many demerits. Like I said, we had a band, and we had a lot of activities. They kept us busy. We were busy. We had a football team and basketball, and they had Halloween parties for us and different types of things. It was a good experience. And most of my trainers were born in the 1800s.
Wow.
They were really old timers that were there. So that was an experience learning from them. The fellow from Sweden was our Sloyd, and they call it Sloyd for woodworking.
Sloyd?
Sloyd is Sloyd, and that's, I guess that's woodworking in Swedish. And that's what they called it there, was you were going to work in the Sloyd shop. So you'd go and we learned how to make everything. We learned how to run the lathes and everything. And I'm 11 and 12 years old. I bring things to the woodworkers and show them that I've made when I was 12 and 13 years old. They can't believe it.
Yeah, wow.
And if we'd had an iron worker there or a blacksmith there, we would have done that too. But we didn't have anybody to do that kind of work. We didn't have a forge or anything like that.
You think about these kids today that are made to sit quietly in a seat all day, and they wonder why they go crazy in school.
Yeah. And see, we went, like I said, we went half a day to school. We got done what takes all day now to do, and we'd do that, and then we'd go to work. Yeah. And we'd work the other time. We ran it, like I said, I worked in the dining hall, in the kitchen. I do all the cooking at home. I'm the cook. My wife loves it. She's looking forward to whatever I'm gonna make.
My wife's the cook. I love it.
You love that. Yeah, very good. Well, the blacksmithing is a wonderful thing. I think a little bit of smoke and fire, and I'm there.
There you go. Well, why don't we shut this down? And I think we've got a pretty good thing. I'll chop it up a little bit and
Yeah, you have to trim out a lot.
I'm a real basic editor, so